Since 2014, this has been Toyota's smallest hatchback, the Wigo. And over the years, it's seen a couple of facelifts, major and minor. And this year, that's no exception because for 2020, well, they gave it a bit of a nip and tuck. So what's been changed for 2020? Now, immediately grabbing your attention is the new bumper. It's edgier, it's got more corners, and well, they tried to make it look a bit more aggressive. I mean, small car and aggressive don't necessarily go hand in hand, but well, Toyota tried to make it work for the Wigo. Also, the new bumper features new fog light housings to follow the shape of the corners. Now, this is the TRD S package, so you get a TRD body kit surrounding the entire lower half of the car. Oh, what else did they change? Well, you have to head over to the back to see the new taillights. Well, they're not totally redesigned, they just have a different color, or should I say colorless, because that red tint on the taillights are gone and, well, now they're clear. One very, very subtle change are the wheels. They look a lot like the ones sold last year, but this one has a slightly different pattern go along with it. Still has a two-tone design, but you have to look a little bit closer to see what's changed. Now for the body kit, and well, let's just say it's drawn some mixed reactions. Now, there are those saying that why do you need a body kit in an econo hatchback? There are those also saying that, well, why the heck not? Well, whatever you think of it, chime in the comments below. So that's the exterior cover. Let's head on to the interior. As you'd expect in an economy hatchback, well, just about everything is draped in hard plastic. So that's your door panel, your dashboard, your center stack, and your center console. Now, with the doors, I noticed something missing, and that's a button to lock the doors. So to lock the Wigo, you have to flick this little tab manually to engage the power locks. But that said, Toyota did try to add a bit more zing inside by adding this bit of trim on all of the doors. It's covered in this felt-like material, so it's not all hard plastic inside. Now, buttons, dials, switches, well, they feel pretty good to touch. I mean, again, this is an economy car, so you know, you're not gonna expect sort of soft touch and, well, damped buttons here and there. But, you know, it's not bad. Now, moving forward a little bit, you get power mirror adjusters, and with this model, you get power folding mirrors. And just beside the mirror controls is your engine stop and start button. Now, I tried figuring why Toyota didn't put it on the right-hand side, and then I saw the amount of space they left here, and it isn't much for a button, so I guess the best place to put it was on your left-hand side. Now for the instrument cluster, it's plain, simple, big font, so it's legible, and there's only one digital display, so that's your multi-information display. It shows you your range, your fuel economy, your mileage, your trip meter, and your clock. And that's pretty much it. And now we get to the center, and this has been redesigned. It's, well, it's less cluttered from the previous pre-facelift model. Now, so you get a new infotainment screen, and you also get a new touch display for the climate controls. The older model still came with a knob. This one, it's a digital display. It's not automatic climate control, mind you. It's simply a digital display for your air conditioning, just to clarify. One thing that caught my attention was this gap between this cubby hole and the cup holder. There's a blank space in between, and you can see the floor of the car. So it's not like anyone's gonna be putting their foot here, right? But don't know why Toyota did this. Maybe it's to just give that feeling of more space inside, but perhaps Toyota could have added a panel here, but that would make it feel like it's more cramped. But anyway, to the center console, you have two cup holders, a rather long gear selector. This is the automatic, after all, and a rather shallow cubby hole right by the handbrake. Now there's no armrest, which is typical of any car in this segment, and just behind the handbrake is another cup holder. Now for the seats, it's a two-piece design instead of the usual three-piece because the headrests, they're built in to the backrest, so you can't really move this up or down. That's it, it's fixed. Now, the back, well, it seems thin, but when I'm sitting in it, it's actually not so bad. Then the seat bottoms, well, they're soft, they're on the soft side, but not too soft that you're gonna end up sinking in them. Now you may have noticed the seat patterns are new for the Wigo. If you own the previous model, you'll notice that there's red highlights now instead of what it had before. Now for the infotainment system, this is the 1.0G TRD. So it comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and also this is a totally new head unit. It's not like the ones from before. So what do you get? So your radio, your Android Auto, CarPlay, and your USB menu, and you swipe the screen, you also get your Bluetooth, your settings, and your auxiliary. Now with Apple CarPlay, what it does is essentially shows the display on your phone. It simplifies it, so you don't have to reach for your phone and change your songs on Spotify or change your directions on Waze by bringing out the phone. You can do that all from the screen. Now if there's one thing I wish Toyota would add to the Wigo, it's an adjustable steering column. Now, I was looking for like a tab or a handle to tilt or telescope the steering wheel, but it doesn't. This steering wheel is fixed, and I hope for the next generation, at the very least, it would have a tilt steering wheel. Of course, a telescopic wheel would be a bonus in a car like this, but again, a tilt steering at the very least, please, Toyota. That's the infotainment covered, and that's the rest of the front covered. Let's go hop on over at the back. Now here at the back of the Wigo, I'm actually surprised that there's a lot of room. Now granted, this is in my sitting position, but you know, this is not bad at all. I mean, leg room's good, knee room's good, and because of the high mounting point of the seats, there's even a fair amount of foot room to go about. Now headroom, well, it's good for someone my height, but I'm not that tall. So I'm 5'4", and you have about this much headroom left. At my height, so let's say you're about 5'7", 5'8", you might find your hair brushing the ceiling just that little bit. As for the rest of the back, I'm going to be honest here, and there's really not much to see, but again, it's fine. It's a Wigo, it's an economy hatchback. So, well, what is there to see? One of the few things to see. Well, you have a reasonably sized bottle holder, although I noticed that the door pockets are a lot smaller than the ones at the front. And another thing I observed, there's no rear armrest, but that is typical of any subcompact hatchback. I don't think there's any subcompact hatch right now that offers a rear armrest. So that's the back covered, good amount of space, not much on the feature side, but that's fine. So that's all covered. Let's go head on to the cargo area and see what that's like. Now for the cargo area of the Wigo, well, it has 260 liters of volume in there. So what does that mean? Well, unfortunately, it means that it has one of the smallest trunks in its class. But thankfully, you can fold down the second row seats to double or even triple the carrying capacity. Now to fold the second row seats, you have to take this bit out just to clear things out of the way, and pull two tabs on each corner. And there you have it. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't fold flat. There's a big fat lip in between the backrest and the cargo area. So if you want to slide in items, you won't be able to do that in the Wigo. You have to carry them so they will go above that little hump that forms the second row seats. Now, before I forget, you can't really open the trunk from the outside because there's no handle or no electronic button. Instead, the only way to open it is with a key, which, well, this one has a key fob, so you have to pull out the key, or you have to pull a tab by the driver's side. Now, the Toyota Wigo is at home in places like these, so inner city roads, tight streets, narrow alleys, and stuff like that. And navigating yourself through jam-packed roads isn't a problem with the Wigo, and thanks to its small size, maneuverability is, well, fantastic. And also, thanks to its small size, turning radius is what you would expect from a car this small, which is fantastic. Now, just because the Wigo is primarily designed for inner city streets, it doesn't mean that it's not accomplished when the roads get a little bit wider. I do have to say that the ride is a little bit on the choppy side, and that's mainly because of the limitations of its length. It's not a big car, so the ride is really going to be, well, a bit choppy. But for what it is, the Wigo can be reasonably comfortable. The seats, despite having thin padding, are fairly comfortable, although they need a little bit more side support. Now for handling and the Wigo, well, it wasn't designed to be a hot hatchback, nor was it intended to be one. But for what it is, the handling is decent. However, the skinny tires do have their limitations, because when you're taking on an off-ramp or an on-ramp on the highway at a fair amount of speed, well, the Wigo will remind you that, well, it has narrow tires, because, well, not that there's tire squeal or any of that, but it's gonna feel like you're going a little bit too fast for the road and all that. So, best advice when you're driving a Wigo is to take it a little bit easier in the corners. Now, what about performance? Well, the Wigo has a 1-liter engine with a little over 60 horsepower, so don't expect any rapid 0 to 100 km/h times here. However, the main purpose of the Wigo is to provide good fuel economy. And around the city and around relatively heavy traffic, it returns about 10 km/L. Now, that's fine if you have a bigger car. However, I was expecting a little bit more from the Wigo. Now, perhaps because it still uses a 4-speed automatic, it forces the engine to rev a little bit higher before it engages to the next gear. And the higher your revs, the more fuel you're gonna burn. So, maybe if this thing had a CVT, fuel economy would be much better. Now, thankfully, the Wigo does deliver good fuel economy when the roads are a bit freer. Now, on the way home, I observed it did 16 to 17 km/L. When the road's really wide open, I even saw it hit 18 km/L. And that is hugely impressive. And of course, it's what you expect from a car this small and with an engine that small. One more thing Toyota can improve on the Wigo, that would be refinement. Yes, I know it's a budget car, but less vibrations would be nice. Like, I could feel the steering wheel vibrations. And I don't know if this is a particular trait of the Wigo. If you own a Wigo, did you notice any vibrations through the steering wheel or through the pedals and stuff like that? Do let us know if that's a common Wigo trait. Well, you've probably picked it up by now that the Wigo certainly isn't a perfect car, but again, it's supposed to be a budget economy car. So, well, let's just say, don't expect the same amount of refinement, comfort, and all that from bigger cars. However, the TRD S starts at 700,000 pesos, and you could say that's a little bit pricey for a subcompact hatchback. Now, if you want a Wigo with an automatic but don't want the TRD bits, the dash cam, and the power folding mirrors, you can with the 1.0G automatic, and it's about 40,000 pesos less. Now, it's up to you if that extra 40,000 is worth it for the TRDS. And there's even a 1.0 manual that starts at the 500,000 peso range. Now, if you want your subcompact hatchback with a little bit more flair, by all means, go for the TRD S Wigo. But if you want to save that 40,000 pesos, and every peso counts these days, well, you won't feel shortchanged with a 1.0G without the kit. But personally, what Wigo would I go for? That would be the 1.0E with a manual. Now, this has been Anton Andres from AutoIndustriya.com. If you enjoyed this review, do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. Thank you for watching.